You're listening to Winnipeg's Classic 107. My name is Simon Rusnak. Carmen, the George Bizet masterpiece, is one of the most frequently performed and popular operas of all time, and for good reason. Iconic tunes, seductive plot lines, convincing characters. Presented by Manitoba Opera, it is an absolute thriller that takes over the Centennial Concert Hall stage. And to tell us more, I'm joined by Manitoba's own Lara Ciekiewicz. Welcome back to Classic 107.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
So happy to have you here. Carmen, it's finally happening, Lara.
I know. 2020, the year we all wish we could forget, but we can't. Meant to be April 2020, and then a little thing called COVID-19 happened, and it went away, and here we are, 2024, doing it again with actually quite a few repeaters. I'm not one of the repeaters. I'm new into that gang, but so happy it's happening again.
Can you talk more about that? How does it feel to get this production into the hall and onto the stage?
I mean, anytime you get to do a show of this magnitude, it's pretty special. The forces that are required in opera in general are massive, but in this show in particular, you have a humongous chorus, you have a youth ensemble chorus, we have a large crew backstage that are helping move all of these sets and pieces and lights and everything, making all of that stage magic happen. Large orchestra, like I think we have 60 plus in the pit. Big crew working backstage for hair, makeup, costumes, all of these things. It feels amazing to be gathered together again, and especially, 4 years post the onset of COVID. To have all those forces together again just feels like family is reunited.
Like you say, this is sort of like the operatic full real meal deal.
Yeah, exactly. Super happy meal.
Yeah, super happy meal, if we could call it
Although
that.
It's a tragedy. But.
Yes, not so happy. But in terms of the production and all that comes together to make it happen, it really is one of those quintessential operas. And you mentioned, just with the delay and all of that, and I don't want to focus too much on it, but a good number of the cast members were able to sign up again. And like you say, there were a number of repeaters. This is remarkable in that you're all so busy. And I mean, you yourself are coming off a pretty busy schedule, a role and house debut singing the part of Mother Abbess in The Sound of Music at RMTC Mainstage, and then on to the Citadel in Edmonton. What's it like to return to your Manitoba Opera family, as you so often call them?
It's been really great because often at the end of any production for me, there's this little period of show blues when all of the adrenaline subsides and you're missing all of your people that you've been, gathered with for quite an intense period. And so I finished Sound of Music a week and a half ago. Easter wow. Sunday, we finished a 2-show day, so a 5-show weekend. I flew home Monday and we were rehearsing. I came a week late. I was very lucky that I was allowed to come a week late into this production, and was rehearsing that Monday night with this group. And I was like, everybody! And so my brain still hasn't processed that Sound of Music is officially over. And so when this show ends and then my body realizes Carmen is over and Sound of Music is over, that's going to be, we're going to need some time. But it's been great jumping back into, all of these friends and, familiar faces.
So you've taken off your habit and you've embodied a totally different character than the Mother Abbess.
That's right.
Can you tell us about the role you'll be performing? Who is Micaëla?
So she is José's country, you could say sort of country girlfriend, although that's sort of unofficial. That's more her wish than the actual truth. Someone that, José has grown up with. She's an orphan and his mother takes her in. So they grow up as childhood buddies, and then he goes away. And she grows up out of eyesight and comes back and is like, hey, your mom wrote this letter to tell you to come home and maybe you should marry me. But then, of course, he meets Carmen in the interim and, things start to go awry in those plans.
You kind of get the drama going. All of a sudden, you just show up. You say, hey, where's Don José? I got a letter from his mom. He should marry me.
Yeah.
Or you find out that she's sort of encouraging this path.
Yeah.
And then it really doesn't go that way. I mean, this is one of those saucy operas that's filled with plenty of love triangles and drama. Is it fun to indulge in that as a performer?
Oh, 100%, right? Because you get your expectations upended at every corner. I love that we've decided that Micaëla knows what's in the letter, that she's read it. So she's not perfect and so innocent that she doesn't know. So she's very much in their first duet, like, I know what's in here and I don't want to say it, but I totally want to say it. And then, by the end of that act, he's already let Carmen go free and he's arrested, and she comes on and she sees it happen and she goes, oh no. And then we don't see her again until the mountains when this is like, months later. And she's there at the behest of his mother. And for me, I think her expectations of anything, kind of relationship with him are gone. But she loves his mom so much that she's like, I will do this for you. This is important enough. And then for him, he's then caught up in the Carmen Escamillo triangle himself. And he's like, but I want to be with this person. And she's like, well, maybe I don't want to be with you anymore. And, see how that plays out. So.
What a fascinating character. And like you say, you make that appearance right at the beginning, and then kind of there's that whole story that goes on in between before you finally return. And I mean, I think what's so apparent is just she's a character who loves fiercely, right? Whether that is Don Jose or just that sort of that fierceness, almost that protective quality and that nurturing quality she feels with his mother.
Yeah.
Just a fascinating character indeed.
Yeah, indeed.
So I'm curious about this particular production because, like I said in the introduction, one of the most frequently performed works in the repertoire has been imagined in all sorts of ways, from traditional to more innovative stagings. Can you shed a little bit of light on the Brian Diedrich direction?
Sure. So the original story is set around the 1820s, and we've updated that, a century ahead of time. So we're now sort of in like Franco's Spain, lots of unrest politically and socially, which I think really plays into the feel of what's happening on stage, and the tensions that can arise really quickly. What I think I most love about this production is the attention to detail through all levels of the characters, like from the children to all of the choristers to the principal cast. Everybody is telling a very detailed story. And so I would say when you come, and please come, it's such a great show. As you're watching the main action, take some moments to look around when other folks are on stage and see how those other stories are unfolding and also supporting the main action. It's really delicious to see all of the layers on stage.
It is something else to see just a developed character. And when someone obviously you are fully invested in your role of Micaëla and the role of Carmen and Don Jose and these main characters, but to see when the chorus really gets into it, and it's like a feast for the eyes, right?
Yeah.
Delicious is a great way to describe it. This is one of those operas that has seemingly given us some pretty ubiquitous tunes, the habanera, the flower song, the song of the toreador.
Yeah.
You already sort of kind of put the call out there in terms of like, hey, please come to the show. But for those who are maybe familiar with the tunes but not necessarily familiar with the opera, why should they come see the full Carmen production?
I mean, I think this is a show that is going to challenge people even today on their perception of what a strong woman is. And even for myself, how I judge her trajectory and her character and her choices. Yes, she's sexy and sensual and all of these things, but she's smart and she is driven by a desire to be her own master at all times. And I think that's still such a story for today, no matter how her story plays out in the opera. I mean, for anybody, regardless of gender, to be our own masters of our own destiny is a really powerful story. But I think for a woman to tell that story and to lead that story is extra powerful. I think also to look at these stories of how people want to do well and do good, but obstacles come in their way. And we're human and we have these foibles and we fall prey to these foibles, and how that can either be redeemed or not. And sometimes there are things that you do that you can't come back from. And so for the audience to go on that ride and be like, what's going to happen? Is it, holy smokes, that just happened. And now what? I think this show is filled with a lot of great, and now what? And perhaps unexpected journeys and answers to that question. And then the music is just amazing and supports that dramatic thought all the way through. I'll be backstage during the overture, miming those cymbal crashes
Yeah.
the whole way through. And it's amazing. I mean, come on.
How can you not? I mean,
I know.
Like you say, I mean, this is just one of those works in which it all truly comes together. This is just one of those masterpieces from the Bizet canon. But like you say, I mean, just the character of Carmen is such an inspiring one. And when this work premiered in the late 19th century, it was almost like too much for the audience. This was one of those works that failed. I mean, it was a pretty spectacular failure, right?
Well, and it was like, we have to remember this came into like the opera comique, a more family-oriented theater. And so this was really shocking to have a woman portrayed in this way. And frankly, my character does not come from the novella. She exists only in the opera. And part of the way she was put into the opera, she was sold as here's the innocent character and she will be the goodness. But I think, with our current eyes, we can see that there's goodness also in Carmen. It just comes out in a different way. Really in different circumstances.
Yeah, really one of the first true feminist lead characters. I mean, she is the title character of this production.
Yeah.
And what an inspiring individual. And like you say, there's so much to unpack here, and there's light and dark in all of us, right? Yeah. And so what a fascinating work indeed. And then just to add to the whole mystery and majesty of all this, one story goes that it was George Bizet who died while the Carmen production was going on. Right? He had a heart attack right around the time Carmen was struggling, and then he never saw the international success that it became.
No.
Thankfully, Winnipeg audiences can see this incredible work. Lara, thanks so much for taking the time to join us in the Classic 107 studio today.
Pleasure.